All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a deeply human and, honestly, a somewhat unsettling phenomenon that silently shapes entire lives. We're looking into the emotional roots of procrastination. You see, we often like to think of our minds as these highly logical machines, but there is a hidden psychology operating just beneath the surface, and it's driving us to avoid the very things that could actually change our lives for the better. The reality of why we delay is far darker and, quite frankly, far more fascinating than anything we've been led to believe.
It is a moment literally almost every single human being has experienced. You have an important task waiting for you. Maybe it's a major project, a huge opportunity, or maybe just a really difficult conversation. You know it matters. You know logically that delaying it is only going to make things worse, and yet instead of just starting, what do? You do something else. You pick up and check your phone. You decide it's the perfect time to clean your room. You go make another cup of coffee. You do absolutely anything except the one thing that actually matters. So why do we intentionally sabotage the goals we genuinely care about?
Society gives us this very surface-level diagnosis for what's happening here. The modern world calls it the productivity illusion. Basically, they call you lazy. People say you just have a poor work ethic or a complete lack of discipline. But that explanation completely falls apart when you realize that some of the biggest procrastinators in the world are actually incredibly ambitious and hardworking people. The psychological reality is entirely different. Procrastination is rarely a productivity problem. It is actually an emotional problem that's just disguised as a productivity problem. We aren't really avoiding the work itself. What we're doing is avoiding the feelings attached to the work.
To really understand why this happens, we have to look backward. So let's look at Section 1, the evolutionary mismatch, and the brain's absolute addiction to comfort. Think about it like this. Our brains evolved in a brutal, ancient world, where immediate rewards literally meant survival. Finding food today was infinitely more valuable than some vague promise of finding food next month. Safety today mattered way more than future possibilities. So our ancient psychology became exceptionally skilled at prioritizing immediate gratification and comfort over any distant, uncertain rewards. But flash forward to today, and we live in a completely different environment. Our most important goals require long-term effort. But look at what we're up against daily. A pinging notification, a quick video, a sudden message, a social media update, a fast 10-second burst of entertainment. Modern technology has essentially weaponized our evolutionary biology. It exploits our ancient warning system with these tiny, instant bursts of stimulation. So when you are faced with the uncertainty of a difficult long-term project versus the guaranteed, immediate dopamine hit of looking at a screen, your brain does exactly what it evolved to do. It chooses instant relief.
Moving on to Section 2, let's explore the dark side of intellect, and specifically why smart people delay.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that we tend to think being smart or ambitious somehow protects you from procrastination. But the hidden twist here is that high intelligence can actually make it much, much worse. Let's walk through exactly how this happens. Highly intelligent individuals possess a really powerful ability to imagine possibilities, but that imagination is a total double-edged sword. In step 1, you imagine the success of the project. But by step 2, that exact same intelligent brain starts generating endless possibilities for failure. It imagines the embarrassment, the rejection, the tiny mistakes, which leads directly right into step 3, overthinking, where every tiny little decision feels completely loaded with heavy consequences. And finally, you hit step 4, paralysis. What started as a relatively simple project has mutated into a terrifying collection of potential disasters inside your mind. The emotional weight becomes totally overwhelming, and taking action just feels impossible.
And this paralysis frequently disguises itself as something very socially acceptable, which is perfectionism. We constantly misinterpret perfectionism as this noble desire for excellence, but psychologically speaking, it operates as a shield. It is a defense mechanism functioning almost entirely to avoid the fear of making mistakes, facing criticism, or appearing inadequate to others. Just think about it. As long as you stare at a blank page, as long as the project remains completely unstarted, it can remain absolutely perfect inside your imagination. Reality is what introduces risk, so you delay the work entirely just to protect that perfect illusion in your head.
And this creates a deeply agonizing progression of time. Days pass by, and the project remains safely perfect right there in your head. Then weeks pass, and you continue delaying the start just to avoid the risk of a flawed reality. Then suddenly, months have passed, and this painful contradiction emerges. You begin ruthlessly criticizing yourself for procrastinating. You delay because you actually care deeply, and then you punish yourself for delaying, which of course only creates even more emotional pressure. It is a massive, compounding cycle of guilt.
Which brings us to a quieter, but honestly much heavier reality. Section 3, the invisible toll and the erosion of self-trust.
The true suffering of delay isn't just about missing a deadline or having an unfinished task on your desk. It's that the task never fully disappears. It just sits there, quietly in the back of your mind, totally unresolved, constantly interrupting your peace. This constant background noise creates a truly devastating psychological loop. You make promises to yourself, and then you break them. You set goals, and you delay them. You create elaborate plans, and you abandon them. This is not merely the absence of progress. This repeated avoidance is a grinding, emotionally exhausting erosion of your very own self-trust. Over time, your confidence quietly bleeds out, simply because your brain learns that it can no longer trust its own intentions.
If you have ever felt this erosion, I really want you to remember this quote. Many people interpret their struggles as personal weakness, but they are experiencing a collision between ancient psychology and modern technology. You are not broken. You are simply trying to navigate an environment that has been specifically engineered to constantly interrupt your thought processes while simultaneously demanding extraordinary, high-level output from you. Millions of people out there are blaming themselves for struggling inside a system that was literally designed to distract them.
But to truly break free from this, we really have to confront the core of the issue. Let's dive into Section 4, the vulnerability paradox and confronting the hidden emotion.
I want you to think, right at this very second, about the goal you have delayed the longest, that one conversation you've been postponing, that dream you've just pushed aside, that project you promised yourself you would start someday. Bring it to the absolute front of your mind right now, and now ask yourself, what emotion is actually attached to it? Is it fear? Is it uncertainty? Is it the absolute dread of judgment, or maybe the possibility of disappointment?
Because beneath the procrastination, beneath all the daily distractions and the so-called perfectionism, lies something deeply and painfully human: vulnerability. To act is to risk. To begin anything is to expose yourself to outcomes that you completely cannot control. To actually try is to open the door to failure. Procrastination is simply your mind desperately trying to keep that door completely shut.
So, the crucial point here is understanding the psychological illusion that keeps us all trapped. The anticipation of the task tells you that the work is this painful, terrifying monster just hiding out there in the future. But the reality of the action itself is completely different. When people finally do move, they almost always find that the feared emotion is far, far smaller than they anticipated. Sure, the task might be difficult, but it is rarely impossible. The great illusion is that anticipating the work is almost always more painful than actually sitting down and doing it. Which brings us to our final understanding today, Section 5, the philosophical resolution and the real battle of identity.
Procrastination isn't just a silly battle over a task on a to-do list. It is a daily, ongoing war between two very different versions of yourself. There's the ancient version of you that seeks immediate comfort and safety, and then there's the ambitious version of you that seeks growth and real transformation. The real tragedy is how we try to resolve this battle. We just wait. We wait around for the perfect moment. We wait to feel the perfect mood. We wait for this magical surge of perfect motivation to hit us, or for the perfect conditions in our lives to finally align. But life has a strange, incredibly unforgiving way of moving forward regardless. As we sit around waiting for these impossible conditions to manifest, days quietly become years, and those opportunities just slowly fade into the background.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate truth of our psychological design. The person you want to become is rarely found after fear disappears. They are found on the other side of acting despite it. Making any real progress fundamentally requires us to confront the exact emotions that our brains are biologically wired to run away from. We just cannot wait for certainty, because absolute certainty in any kind of meaningful work simply does not exist. Ultimately, procrastination is not a lack of discipline. It is quite simply a direct confrontation with human nature itself. The resolution to this isn't going out and finding a better productivity hack. The real resolution is accepting the discomfort. It is the raw willingness to move forward and to take the risk long before you ever actually feel ready. So the question remains, are you going to keep waiting to feel safe, or are you ready to begin?